Multiple choice questions in the listening part of the IELTS test can be really troublesome. It is not because these questions are actually hard to find an answer for, it is because they're really confusing. However, in this video, we are going to learn how to find the answer quickly and correctly. Hello everybody, it's me, the Hero Teacher, and I've been teaching English and IELTS for over 11 years. I want to reach out to as many people as possible to help with the IELTS and English studies. And in this video, we are going to tackle the most feared question of the IELTS listening test, multiple choice questions. Let's get started. Let's start with what these questions are. Multiple choice questions in the IELTS listening test are actually the simplest question types in terms of their structure. What you have to do is very simple. You just need to find the correct option of the given three to gain a mark. Well, first of all, it's time to understand what multiple choice questions in the IELTS listening test are. Basically, you are given three options, one of which is the answer that you are looking for. It is something that we all are very familiar with, yet they can be confusing. In the last decade or so, these questions usually appear in section 2 and section 3. However, in the past, they used to appear in section 1 and 4, which means we have to focus on section 2 and section 3 multiple choice questions to maximize our score in this part. Well, if these questions are so simple, then what makes them this confusing or this troublesome? Actually, the answer to this question is quite simple, because the speaker in the recording, instead of saying just one option, actually says all three options just to confuse you. And when this happens, the candidates lose concentration, they panic, and they don't know what the answer for that particular question is. I've met countless candidates who actually panicked during multiple choice questions, which unfortunately made them lose so many points and eventually caused them score low in this listening band. For example, here, let's take a look at question number 11. At first, everything looks so cool because I'm given three options and all of them are numbers. And I know that one of them is correct. So if the speaker of the recording only mentioned one number, for example, B or A or C, that would have been amazing, because I would immediately understand that, okay, that's the one which the speaker said, so this should be the answer. However, this is not the case. The speaker most of the time mentions all three of them in different but similar contexts. That is very confusing, and that can also, as I mentioned, cause you to panic. Obviously, no need to fear, because if you're watching this video, that means you've also encountered some problems related to this question. I'm going to give you a three-step solution that you need to follow step by step to maximize your score, eventually reaching band 9 in this listening test. Step number 1 is all about understanding the question, because if you don't carefully read the question sentence, then you are not going to realize what you're actually looking for. This is awful, and many candidates unfortunately do this. They don't carefully read the question sentence. That means they basically don't understand what the question is and what kind of an answer they're looking for that particular question. So it's all about understanding the question. And if we check this question number 11, I'm going to read it. It says, what is the maximum number of people who can stand on each side of the boat? Basically, the question asks me that the question wants me to find out on each side of the boat, how many people can stay on their feet. I need to understand the meaning of this question so that it'll be easy for me to recognize it in the recording. Why meaning? Why not all the words? Because we know that in IELTS listening, most questions, most options are paraphrased, which means we are going to hear synonyms a lot that can be confusing. So we focus on the meaning in order not to be confused and stay on track of the recording. Once the question is clear, so once I know what I'm looking for, then analyzing the options should be done, which is step number 2. You need to understand each option very well. In this instance, the options are just numbers and it's really easy, like 9, 15 and 18. But in a few minutes, I'm going to show you like how to deal with larger options. In this instance, you just need to know your options are 9, 15 and 18. And this concludes your step 2. If you think these videos are useful for you to learn more about the IELTS test and English, please consider subscribing because it allows me to reach out to more and more people and motivates me beyond imagination. Thank you for your time and your effort to help me. Let's continue. And the final step, which is step number 3, is about knowing when the answer will be given in the recording. So when I read this question, what is the maximum number of people who can stand on each side of the boat? I know that then like the speaker has to start talking about how many people can this boat take. That will signal me that, okay, question number 11 is going to be answered very soon. Understanding the question, which is step number 1, also helps me with locating the whereabouts of my answer in the recording as I listen. Many candidates don't do that because like they think they will automatically start hearing all the questions. This is true to some extent, but not always. You just need to be aware of the recording that you're listening to. It's after all a story or a presentation that you need to understand. When you understand your question very well in the first step, in the final step, you will immediately realize when the speaker starts to talk about it, which will give you an upper hand. So you will not be caught off guard and you will be able to listen carefully and answer the question. How about questions that have larger options? The example that we took a look at a few minutes ago just had numbers as options. So it's easy to choose numbers. So there isn't a lot going on. But in this example, let's take a look at question number 22, where we have larger options like option A, B, C. They are all relatively larger than the one that we already have taken a look at. Well, why large answers are problematic can be a question that you might ask. Well, during the examination, when you're listening to the recording, your short memory is not quite strong, which means you cannot remember everything for a short period. You may get easily confused. And when you have a lot of things to consume, a lot of information to consume, that can be confusing. Like you can read, let's take a look at that. Like option A, their presentations were not interesting. They found the presentation stressful. They didn't look at the audience enough. So you see, this is a lot of words to process and you have only a few seconds to do that. And when that happens, you just get confused because the time is not enough. Because the time is not enough, you panic, and because you panic, you lose mark for it. Like, I mean, you don't catch the option, which panics you further, and the exam goes out of control. But what needs to be instead? You have to focus on the meaning and just 1 or 2 words that define that meaning of the option, which reduces the stress on your short memory. You don't have to remember everything, you just need to remember things that define the meaning of the option. For example, in question 22, option A, their presentations were not interesting. I only focus on presentations not interesting. So option A is about presentations not being interesting. I don't look at there, were, these are all extra words. They try to distract me. I just focus on core meaning. When I understand it, things are all right. Next, option B, they found their presentation stressful, presentations stressful. So this is the core meaning. So option A is about presentations not interesting. So you see, it's easy to remember. B is about presentations stressful. And the final one, they didn't look at the audience enough. So it's about eye contact, not enough eye contact with the audience, or no eye contact with the audience. So I'm fabricating, I'm creating that meaning. So now you're looking at me, but let's try to remember what each option is about. with core meaning. Option A is about, yes, presentations not interesting. Option B is about presentations stressful. Option C is about no enough eye contact. So you see, I didn't look at the questions, but I can easily remember. Why? Because I remember the core core meaning, not the options. When you remember the core meaning, it is easy to realize it. It's really easy to catch it in the recording, which is life-saving. And I highly recommend you to try this method, and you'll be amazed with the results. Well, I have tried this method with hundreds of candidates, and every time they applied this method, this way of answering the questions, their score, especially in this question type, started to soar. And I believe it's going to work for you. However, what needs to be done from here on? It goes down to practice, practice, practice. Without practicing, you cannot master this method of tackling multiple choice questions in the listening part of the IELTS test. At first, it's going to be difficult. You will have difficulties applying this method. However, after probably like 5, 6 or 7, 8 tries, you're going to be amazed. You're going to find all the options correctly. And I want you to comment down your results in the comment section below. I really want to know how your results are improving. And that's it for this video. Thank you very much, and see you in my next question explanations videos. Bye-bye.